welcome. My name is Jan Kohler, and today I'm going to take you through the process of making your own barn door. I will take you step by step through the materials and the instructions to get your own barn door up and on the wall and looking beautiful. Before we start, I did want to introduce myself. My name is Jan Kohler, and I live in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm a teacher at the high school level. I've taught 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and 12th. And while I haven't taught English 11, I've taught other grade levels in subjects like publications, film studies, and this past summer we were given the opportunity to teach enrichment courses. I think this was sort of like a federal intervention for the students that have been out of school for a year and a half because of COVID. So they offered kids credit retrieval options for those who fell behind during the quarantine, and also some enrichment courses that are just sort of meant for socialization. So they needed teachers for that. They put it out to the staff, and I was pretty much already on board before I even had the go-ahead to do the class that I wanted to. So I proposed a DIY class, my admin supported it, and it was a total blast. It was 30 days of non-stop DIY projects. I mean, we did magnet boards, tissue jars, we did tie-dye, reverse tie-dye, we made keychains, we made jewelry, we made epoxy cup holders, and their final project was a wooden tray. So it was so much fun, and honestly, I just love this stuff. Like, I live for crafting, creating. There's a sense of pride and ownership when you make something yourself, and I just really enjoy the whole process. So outside of that, I am a mother of 3 boys. I have a 14-year-old son who's actually going to be attending school with me next year, and I cannot believe it. I can't believe I have a high school aged child, but I have a 14-year-old, 11-year-old, and 5-year-old, all boys. They are fun, they are rambunctious, and they keep me on my toes. I'm also married, and my husband is a baseball coach, and it's sort of funny because I'm so into this stuff and he is so not into this stuff. So he just kind of sits on the wayside and watches me do my thing and compliments me when it's finished. If I need his help, he'll help, but we are very different and we work that way. So, okay, so first things first, materials. The things that you'll need for this project are wood, obviously. I'm not including the dimensions because you need to measure out your door frame and decide how tall and how wide you want your door. But the wood is optional and completely up to you, like what type of wood you use. I went with like a it's not the most expensive wood out there, but it's also not like the least expensive. If you go to Lowe's and you're looking at wood and you're trying to decide what kind of lumber, I typically just go with something that's solid and isn't super warped. If you go with cheaper wood, they tend to be more warped. They're not straight. So like the more expensive wood has straighter cuts, and I kind of go somewhere in between and I work with my budget. The next thing that you're going to need is a cabinet end panel or plywood. So what I did was I went to the store, I found a piece of cabinet end panel that I thought would work for my project. I measured it out and then I had it cut down to my dimensions. So that piece of wood acted as the sounding board for my whole project. Sort of used it as like a template to work with. So when I laid out my wood, made sure it fit evenly, and then that's really all you need to get started. After that, you will need some sort of heavy duty adhesive. I went with Gorilla Glue is the brand. I use it for a lot of different projects, and they have a lot of different types of glue, and I found this really super strong heavy duty construction adhesive. Another optional tool, which I didn't end up using, but it's recommended, is a caulking gun. So if you get one of the larger tubes of glue, the caulking gun just pushes it out nice and smooth. I ended up using the end of a mallet. It worked fine, but it would have been more convenient to have the gun. The next thing you'll need is a wood stain and a stain mitt, which is also optional. So the stain is also up to you. I went with, it's called Aged Barrel. It's a gray. So whatever you're looking for, you choose. And the stain mitt, I felt like it was worth the money. I usually just use rags, old rags, towel, whatever, and that works fine. But the stain mitt it went on really smooth, and it made the whole process, I felt like, quicker. So that would be recommended, and I found that at Lowe's. You'll need at least 1 large wood clamp, enough so that when you've glued down the wood, it will clamp together the width of the wood so that you're pushing it, putting pressure on it, and so it adheres to the other wood without a bunch of holes in it. You will need something heavy to lay on top of your door after you glue it down. I used stuff that was lying around my garage, toolboxes, dumbbells, old paint cans. And then you will also need a barn door hardware kit, which you can find on Amazon, or I'm pretty sure Lowe's carries them as well. I ordered mine on Amazon, and I will include the link to that. Optional materials you will need, or you don't necessarily need, but they're nice to have on hand, are some sort of saw, like an electric saw. The two that I own are an angle grinder and an orbital jigsaw. I honestly didn't even know the names of them, but I ended up having to use both of them. I put in the hardware for the door. One of the rails was just like a teeny bit too long, and it kind of hits our blinds. So I ended up having to take the orbital saw to the rail in my room. That was a little bit stressful. And then I also used the angle grinder to cut down other little pieces that I was attaching to my door. So it's not necessary to have them. If you go to most of your hardware stores, will allow you to make a certain number of cuts for free. Some of them charge, it's kind of hit or miss. Like sometimes I ask for wood to be cut, like 20 pieces, and no one says anything. And then the next time they're like, oh, it's 25 cents a cut. So it's kind of like luck of the draw there. I would recommend having a sander. I like my wood to be, you know, not all pokey. Like, I don't know if you've ever had a splinter, but they're not fun. So sand down your wood, creates a more even stain, and it's just softer to the touch. You can use just regular sanding pads. I personally hate sanding. Ooh, like nails on a chalkboard, like the actual like sandpaper, my hand with the sander on the wood. I hate it. So the electric sander is the way to go if you're the same as me. After I was finished with my project, I use a polyacrylic protective finish spray. It just sort of seals everything in. There's options there. I chose to add steel bars to the front of my door. I liked the look, and it also just adds reinforcement to the door. I've seen people do it with like long strips of wood, so that's optional as well. I would recommend, you're gonna need an electric drill for the hardware. You don't necessarily need an electric drill for your door, but I attached a handle to mine, and I ended up using the drill for that. I also used the drill for those steel bars that I was talking about, so that's good to have. The back side of my door, I chose to make magnetic, and then I covered it with the chalk paint. So if you're interested in doing that, you're going to need to order Magnetize It or any other type of magnetic paint. This particular one is a paint and primer in one, and it worked really well. And then chalk paint you can buy at Lowe's or order online, and just paint that over the back of your door. Before you continue watching, I should warn you, this is my first YouTube video. I do feel like I have a lot of good information to share with you, so if you can just deal with some bad camera angles and poor lighting and just be patient all the way through, I think it'll be worth your while. By the end of this tutorial, you should have a good idea of everything you're gonna need to complete the project on your own and the confidence to get started and make it happen. If I can do it, you can do it. What I'm working with is basically it's an opening from the bedroom to the bathroom, and there's a door gap. It's about a little less than 6.5 feet tall by 3 feet wide. What's going to be tricky is that we've got the door opening, and it's not a flush wall all the way across, but I really didn't want to do 2 doors, and I really didn't want to have to do the bypass system again. So I just decided that I'm going to put a block of wood to kind of fill in that gap and just run the hardware across the top. We'll see how it goes. It's just an idea. I'm all about solutions, so I'm gonna see if we can make it work. Here is what we're working with. I've got all my wood. Now, before we start, I will say I did all my measurements to the T. Now, math is not my thing, but I have learned how to measure, but I always have to measure, double check. Word to the wise, when you go to Lowe's, for whatever reason, and I don't know if this is news to me and everybody else knows this, but when they post the signage for the wood dimensions, they're not actually accurate. So with a 36-inch width to work with, I decided I needed 9 4-inch wood slots. And when I got there, I was like, okay, perfect. I got the 4-inch it was 1 inch by 4 inches by 8 feet, which I had cut down to 6.5. Got home, placed it, and was like, wait a second, this is not wide enough. Like, what did I do wrong? And I came to realize during my second trip back to Lowe's that, yeah, it's like not accurately advertised. So each of the pieces of wood that I got were actually 3.5 inches wide and 3/4 width, not 1 inch. Before you get started on your project, you need to measure your door frame. So what I did was I took a tape measure. I measured the height, which was a little bit less than 90 inches. I think it was about 87, 88 possibly. So I rounded up to 90 because we had plenty of room above the door frame. And then the width of my door was 36 inches. So I decided to just go with the 3 feet. The next thing that you'll do is decide how many pieces of lumber you need to fit that space. So for me, 36 inches wide, everyone does math differently, but in my head I did 9 times 4 is 36 or 6 times 6 is 36. Either one of those would have worked. So I decided to go with 4 inches. As I described earlier, I went to the store thinking I was buying 4-inch wide pieces of wood, got home and realized they were 3.5 inches. So make sure you double check. I even took my tape measure with me and I didn't catch it until I got home. So it is what it is. I ended up having to finagle some things around a little bit. What I ended up here with was 6 3.5-inch wide wood pieces. And then on the ends, I have 6-inch pieces. In the middle, there's a 4-inch piece. I did the math. I think it works because the next part is to choose, actually you might want to do this first, but choose basically a sounding board for your piece. So if you can see here, under this wood, there is a piece of, actually what this is a cabinet backing. It's not super thick, but it'll do. You can use plywood if you want to, but I found this piece and honestly, I didn't want my door to be super duper heavy. That was one of the struggles I had with hanging the hardware when I did the bypassing doors the other day. It was the doors that I ordered were redonkulous and I was doing it myself. So with this piece, I decided to go strong, but not too strong. It's actually pretty flexible. But once I lay my wood down on it and I glue it down, it should be sturdy enough. As you can see here, I've laid out all of my wood pieces. And what's nice about this particular backing is that it's working as my sounding board to make sure that everything is lined up correctly and that it fits the dimensions. This is actually, that piece that I have right there is a cabinet end panel, but like I said, you can use any type of plywood. I know that there's thicker plywoods to choose from. Honestly, with lumber prices being so high right now, I went with cheap and durable, and will it work? I think it will. I've lined up all my pieces. As you can see, the middle one does not match the rest of my wood, but I don't think it's gonna be a huge deal once I stain it. Cut all my pieces down to 6.5 feet, which is 90 inches. It does fit my board pretty well. So I'm gonna go ahead and now start sanding these pieces down so the edges are smooth, and then I will stain after that. Back in business. My wood is all sanded. What I'll do when I'm finished like lining up all my boards is probably sand the edges, you know, the top and bottom of the door, so that it's flush and even. But for now, my sanding job is done. I went ahead, I just took my blower and blowed everything off as best I could, just to remove as much residual dust on the planks themselves. And then I just kind of quick wiped them down with like a damp cloth. And now we're gonna start staining the wood. I picked this stain. It is Minwax wood finish penetrating stain. It's aged barrel. I haven't used this color before, and I mean, I could test it out first, but I'm not going to, just because I don't know, that's just how I roll. I just kind of like to see how it turns out. I forgot to mention too, if you decide to cut your own wood, which I recently got a saw, and I actually have 2 different saws in my garage. Don't even know the name of them, to be quite honest, but I used it a couple times without safety goggles, and I would not recommend that. Like, I definitely felt like I was in a very precarious situation as I was doing that. Like, wood was just flying off everywhere. So make sure you have safety goggles. I found these at the Dollar Tree, $1. And gloves. These ones are like cut resistant. I found them at Lowe's. And I actually like to put these on too when I'm sanding. It just kind of reduces some of the vibration. When I am staining the wood, normally I just use like a cloth, you know, like an old rag or whatever. But I found this at Lowe's and I'm kind of excited about it because I am like such a mess when I do any kind of crafting or staining, painting. I mean, pretty much the whole month of June, my hands were multicolored and I probably looked like I had some sort of disease. But make sure you glove up if you don't want stain everywhere, because it is kind of hard to get out of your hands and your clothes. Wear something that's not going to devastate you if it's ruined, you know? So this stain is pretty intense. It's gray. I was thinking it was more of like a brownish, hence the reason probably should have tested it first before I started rubbing it all over my door. But it is what it is. I mean, I kind of like it. We have a lot of gray in our house, so I'm just gonna go with it. Plus, I'm putting a couple pieces of hardware onto my doors when I'm all done, and I'm going to paint those like an oil bronze sort of color. So I actually think it'll look nice. And I like to do really light coats when I stain. So I sort of, if you could tell, I'm taking the back side of the glove here and I'm just sort of wiping away the excess. You can always add more, but I really like to see the wood grain. And so the lighter the coat, the more you can see that. I can always add more if I want to, and you can always take it away by sanding it down too, but I prefer not to do that. I'm all about, you know, like not creating extra steps for myself. So there's that. I actually took wood shop in high school, which is, it's kind of funny because I honestly don't know how I passed that class. I mean, the requirement for the class was to show up every day, and in order to participate, which is how you got your grade, you needed to wear closed-toed shoes, which, despite the fact that it was against dress code to wear flip-flops, I wore them every day. So, you know, fashion first. And I like vaguely remember making a wood clock, and I'm not sure I actually made it. Like, I think someone helped me and probably ended up doing the majority of the project, but I really didn't learn a lot. And it's kind of a bummer because there's a lot of things that I didn't learn in high school, mainly just because I was like way too checked out and distracted to pay attention, which is ironic because I'm a teacher, right? There's like an old saying, teachers make the worst students. I would consider myself probably the world's okayest teacher. Definitely not the world's greatest student. Well, Mr. Wenzel, you would be proud of me, I think. If only he could see me now. I'm gonna go ahead and speed this up and we'll see how it turns out when it's dry. To just review this glove here. It's the Minwax Stain Knits. Spindles and railings faster. Fully lined to keep hand clean and dry. This is not an advertisement, but I will just say, like, that seemed to make the whole process like a lot faster. Expedited by a lot. You know, I feel like when I'm using towels or whatever, rags I'm constantly trying to avoid, I don't know. It just seemed to go really smooth and fast. So I would recommend picking one of those up. And I got a stain. All right, next step is to stain the backing part. My sounding board is what I'm calling it. I chose to go with a side that had the sticker on it because I couldn't totally get the sticker off, which is fine because I'm gonna have my wood pieces glued and screwed down to this piece. And then I actually have plans for the back side, which I'm pretty excited about. So what we're gonna do is I ordered, it is a magnetic primer and paint that you just paint directly onto the surface. And then you can paint over it, so I'm gonna put a chalk paint over that. So at the back side of my door, the side that is gonna go into the bathroom area, will be a magnetic chalkboard. You know, we can leave little messages to each other, to-do lists, reminders. That's the fun part about doing DIY, is you can sort of put your own spin on your projects, you know? So I am looking forward to seeing how that turns out. So I'm staining my back piece now, and then I will add the wood when I'm done. We are back, and I'm pretty excited right now because my stain is finished. I've laid out all the boards, and it's looking pretty legit, not gonna lie. The boards are all laid out here. I really like the color. I think it turned out really nice. I love that you can still see the little knots in the wood and the texture. I think I'm gonna sand it one more time, just a quick sand to remove any imperfections and kind of let that detail come through a little stronger. And then I'm gonna start laying down the glue. So the one mistake I made was I bought some awesome glue, except I don't have the syringe thing that pushes the glue out. But I Googled it, and I can simply squeeze it out with my thumb, or I can use a long tool like a hammer. So that's what I'm gonna do because I'm impatient and I don't wanna wait until my caulking gun gets here. I'm gonna sand and then we'll start gluing. It's time to make this official. I've got my wood down, laid out as tight as I could get it and as even as I could get it. And I'm just gonna sort of eye it during the gluing process and just hope it works out. So I have here, it's Gorilla brand glue, max strength construction adhesive. It is clear. It says it's the strongest formula. If you've used Gorilla Glue before, most of their products are pretty darn sticky, if you will. So I'm going with this. Like I said, I don't have a caulking gun, so I'm just going to like see how it goes with a hand squeeze. And then if that doesn't work, then I am going to use the back side of this mallet to push it out. And it's coming. As I'm doing this, I'm also gonna put a little bit of glue on this side and this side, the sides that would be touching on the wood planks, so that those seal and bond together as well. And we'll go from there. Okay, this is pretty exciting. I've got the glue down. I am using Irwin Quick Grip I got it as tight as I could so that the boards are tight without gaps, and it seems to be working pretty well. I mean, there's some slight gappage, but nothing too crazy. Marjorie, go inside. I'm gonna probably set a few things on top just to weight it down a little bit, and then I'm gonna let it dry. Hello and welcome back. It is day 2 of barn door making, and it is also July 5th, the day after America's Independence Day. And according to WT Forecast, it is hotter than a whorehouse on a dollar day. So I believe it. I haven't even started working yet, and I'm already breaking a sweat. My kids and I are gonna head over to Wet n Wild after this, and I will say that the freezing cold temperatures will be welcome for me when I'm done with all this today. What we're gonna do today is we're gonna take the barn door, we're gonna flip it over, and we're gonna paint the other side. I sanded everything down, I painted everything. Everything is glued down, and it's been sitting weighted down for the last 24 hours or so. And I think it's pretty solid. So we're gonna flip it over today. I decided to go with a magnetic paint for the back side of my door. I just think it's gonna be cute. We are now ready to paint the back side of our barn door. I flipped it over, board side down, and I gave it a quick wipe down with this microfiber glove that I found at the Dollar Tree. I find a lot of stuff at the Dollar Tree, so I'll probably reference it a lot. This is nice to have just to get any remaining debris off the back. The next thing that we're gonna do is start painting. So this is called Magnetize It. Magnetic paint and primer makes any surface hold magnets. So I'm pretty excited to see how this turns out. I've opened it, I've poured the paint in my tray here. I was just a little surprised to see, I was expecting like paint-like consistency, but it's a lot thicker. Obviously it has some sort of, magnet in it. That's pretty cool. And here I'm just using this roller brush. I feel like a roller gives a kind of more even paint, but you can use whatever you want. If you want to use a brush, a cloth, your hair, whatever you want to do. I've also found this little set at the Dollar Tree. I used it yesterday. I mean, I just love the Dollar Tree. You can find so much there and that's useful for just a portion of the price that you would get somewhere else. I'm gonna start on that end, work my way this way, let it dry. I'll probably do a few coats and we're gonna see how it turns out. I'm really excited to see how magnetic this actually is. Welcome back, everybody. It is day 3 of DIY barn door, and today is installation day. I'm so excited. I say day 3 because it's day 3 for me, but this project could easily be done in 2 days or less. It depends on how motivated you are to get it up. I was super motivated, but I had to wait. I had to wait for my hardware to show up. I've already installed the bow handles. Those are the things that attach to the door and glide it along the track. The only thing I have left to do is attach the handle, which I will do in the garage, and then we're gonna move it on up to the bedroom, install the hardware, and go from there. Okay, here is the door. I love it. I know it's probably hard to tell, it is late at night, so the lighting's not great. Hopefully we'll get a better view up in the room, but I love the color of the stain. I love everything about it. These pieces right here, I picked up at Lowe's. It was near the lumber section, and they were just silver pieces of, I don't even know what these are called, but what I did was I just spray painted them and screwed them across the top and bottom, 2 feet from the top, 2 feet from the bottom, and I just thought it would complete the look that I'm going for, and it also just adds a level of stability to the door. The only thing I have left before we go upstairs is to install the handle. I found this handle on Amazon. I will be sure to include the link to this. I love the industrial look. I know that's kind of a thing right now. I guess I'm a fool for fads, but I'm going to install this handle and then we're going to take it upstairs and install everything. We are up in our bedroom. This is the master bath. As you can see, you get a lot of light coming through the bathroom into the bedroom. This is where we sleep. It can be obnoxious when you're trying to sleep in and the other person is getting ready in the morning. Also, I think it'll just be nice to have some privacy as we're using the shower. We do have small children that like to run-in unannounced. So I'm excited to get this bad boy up. You see here, I was talking about in another video earlier on that this wall is not flush. You can see it's indented right here. So I built this piece to sort of give it the track something to attach to. So it's just not just like free hanging. So hopefully it works out. It is installation time. I've got my barn door here. I've got all of the tools. I've got all the hardware. So we're gonna make it happen right now. And here's the door. I'm pretty excited about it, if you can't tell. Okay, it's beautiful. I really am so happy with it. So all we gotta do now is get it up on the wall. Let's go. All right, we are going to start with installing the rail to the header. Now you don't have to use a header for your barn door. The nice thing about the header is that you can install it in place of trying to locate all of the studs in your wall. You definitely want your rail attached to the studs. You do not want your door falling off. So I decided to go ahead and do the header. I'm going to mark the holes directly onto the header. I will then attach the spacers in between the rail and the bolt. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do this part first, and then I'm going to attach it to the wall. I did it the other way around last time, and that didn't turn out so well. I didn't measure correctly. My door was too long. So I feel like this way actually might work out better for me. If you're not using a header, you might want to use a stud finder. There's the tapping method. Another method that I came across recently was this handy dandy magnet method. So anytime you have a door frame, there's typically studs in the door frame, and then every 16 inches apart, you'll find more studs. But basically what you do is you take your magnet and you're just gonna run it along the wall, and you can see here it's sticking because this is a door frame. So the whole thing is going to be surrounded by a stud. Usually when you have an electrical outlet, you'll find one in that area, but nothing's really sticking right here. But if you measure out 16 inches, you'll typically find another one. Oh, I found another one right here on the corner. Okay, so little tip there, because I don't have a stud finder, and all you gotta do is glue. I just super glued 2 magnets together on a piece of fishing string, and it's pretty handy. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. I'm going to be installing the rail to the header, and then I will be measuring the distance from the top of my barn door above so that it's accurately placed, so that it's not dragging on the floor, and we'll see how it goes. Moment of truth. About to hang this door. Fingers crossed the measurements are correct. It's high enough so that the door is off the floor. I am a 35-year-old female and I can hang this by myself. So girls, don't be afraid to try this. You can do it. All right, I'm gonna lift the door. You may notice at the very tip there, the railing's a tiny bit long. So I am gonna have to take my saw in there and cut it off, but I'm not gonna worry about it right now because it's not gonna ruin the door. So here we go. Let's see if we can do it. You do have to lift it. The door is heavier than I wanted it to be, but heavy is solid, so that's good. Try not to laugh. Success! We did it! We did it! And I'm gonna have to put the track on the bottom because it is swinging around a little bit. Barn door is up. I'm excited. It looks cool. I'm really excited. I need to add the door stoppers. So I'm gonna add those. And we are done. And I'm so happy. I'm really loving it. This is awesome. I'm really excited. Hope you guys are too. Well, I'm officially wiped out and ready for bed. But before I go, I just wanted to give a special shout out to my cousin Rebecca Charlton. She runs her own Etsy business and has a shop there, which you can check out at Becca Boer or Rebecca Charlton. You can search up her YouTube videos. Again, searching Rebecca Charlton. She's the one who encouraged me to pursue all of my projects and to make these videos. So I honestly never would have done a YouTube video in my entire life if she hadn't encouraged me to do so. So I appreciate her for that. She actually made this necklace that I'm wearing. I love it. It holds very symbolic meaning for me. So she's the best, and I will include her information at the end of this. Her videos are awesome. Her jewelry is awesome. So be sure to hit her up when you get a chance. Oh, and how could I leave without saying, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for future DIY videos. Thanks for joining me, and I hope that you have a blast making your own barn door.